And to discuss Russia's military operations further, I'm joined by Major General AJB Jaini, who's a defense expert. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to Mirror Now. Appreciate your time. I'd like to ask you that US forces are not going to fight in Ukraine, but additional troops will be deployed to Germany and NATO's eastern flank to bolster defenses, and that's what America has said. How much do you think this is going to help Ukraine? After all, it's their soldiers and even their common citizens that are taking to the battlefield.
Shalini, this was expected. We did not expect, as defense analysts, that the United States would send boots on the ground. In the last 1 month, you would have noticed a lot of hullabaloo was going on, a lot of warmongering, a lot of hype from Washington to Trudeau in Canada and Mr. Boris Yeltsin in Johnson in London, Macron in France. They were only making polite statements, that very heavy penalties will be placed on Russia and Russia will have to suffer and, they'll have to face very serious consequences. Bullshit. All this was the Ukrainian President Zelensky and the Ukrainians into a slumber. And that is what has happened. If the attack was expected, as was being announced by the American intelligence agencies and their defense establishment, they came to the extent of saying attack will be kal 10 baje ho jayega, 19th ko ho jayega, aaj raat ko ho jayega. If that was so, and which actually came about, and if the intelligence was so, lead intelligence, what we call in the army, so strong, then why wasn't preparations done? Where is the use of sending 5,000 troops in helicopters to Poland and to Czechoslovakia now? It's far too late, far too little. So these people have put Zelensky into a very shitty situation, I would say, where the guy, being a nationalist, is left to fight all on his own. And how can he fight on his own when the comparative strengths of the Russian defense forces and the Ukrainian defense forces are 1 to 8? These people are just not even 2 lakhs of ground soldiers. Those guys have got 8 lakhs of just infantry and the innumerable number of aircrafts and submarines and helicopters, and mostly so the tanks.
Absolutely, sir. In fact,
20,000.
That's right. In fact, I'm coming to that. Definitely, Russia undisputedly has an overwhelming military superiority. In fact, let me just read out that, some of those numbers for our viewers. A head-to-head comparison clearly shows that Russia has about 8.5 lakh active personnel, whereas Ukraine has only about 2.5 lakh. Russia has 6 times more tanks, 5 times more artillery guns. Russia has 17 submarines, whereas Ukraine has none. So even if NATO provides additional troops to Ukraine, additional weapons to Ukraine, where are the troops? And in fact, everybody has been clear on this right from day one that US is not duty bound to help Ukraine because Ukraine is not a member of the NATO yet.
Yes, Shalini. You see, if you look at Ukraine's situation, it is in no way capable of joining the NATO. Everybody knew that Ukraine will never get admitted into NATO. They were forced to put in that application for being included into the NATO. And right from Biden downwards, the whole of NATO leadership knew that Ukraine will never get a membership of NATO. So what was Putin asking for? Putin was only saying, don't include them in NATO. That's all. It was very easy to get over this crisis. But I guess the American superpower, which has been used to interfering in others' affairs, in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Kuwait, in Afghanistan, everywhere, there must be some war on in some place in the world at every day and night, so that their defense industry and their defense establishment can have a say. This is exactly what has happened. And then you talk about democracy, that Ukraine is a democracy and this is an attack on democracy. What did the Americans do when they broke down Serbia and they created Kosovo? What did the Americans do when they attacked Libya and they created a regime change? What did the Americans do when they attacked Iraq without the United Nations Security Council sanction? What did the Americans do or doing even now, bombing Syria day and night.
Right, sir. So definitely America has several questions to answer, but I'd also like to take this point to discuss the impact of Russia's military ties with India, because India is sort of walking the tightrope. Its partnership with the US is important for balancing China in the Asia-Pacific region. At the same time, 60% of India's defense equipment is still of Russian origin, including the famous BrahMos missile. And with China's border provocation of India, how do you read this defense dynamics? Because we cannot ignore the deep military ties between Russia and China as well.
Shalini, let me correct your statement. We are not walking a tightrope. We are not doing any trapeze. We are not doing any drama. We are not doing any circus. We are being in our national interest. Our national interest lies with a time-tested Indo-Russian friendship treaty. Russia has been a time-tested friend. The way in 1971, I don't want to go into the details, where the American 7th Fleet had come onto our doorstep in the Bay of Bengal to threaten us, and the Russians came to our help. The Russians have always been a reliable ally. We cannot let the Russians down or make anything statements against the Russians. You said about the defense equipment. Yes, 70% of our defense requirements comes from Russia. Notwithstanding the fact that the USSR has broken down, they are in a bad situation to supply us with spare parts and spares. But still, we are a major inductee of Russian equipment. And we can't sacrifice our national security because of some other Joe Soap who didn't know what to do. On the other hand, the Americans are also our friends. I am not calling Biden or Trump or anybody as our enemy.
Right.
They are our friends. We have got a strategic partnership, a strategic relationship, a strategic arrangement, a strategic engagement with America now, which is improving by the day. So we cannot antagonize either side.
Correct.
And therefore, we have played the role of saying, let's get to negotiations. Let's get to talking. Let's get to some kind of a give and take. Because when you get onto a negotiating table, you cannot just take without giving anything. So there has to be a give and take. But I'm afraid, Shalini, we did this too late. India should have put its thumb on the table 1 month ago, much before the warmongering and the hype and all started.
Right.
And when you talk of the Ukrainians, I don't think the Ukrainians are washed with milk.
Absolutely.
I want to highlight just 10 seconds.
Yes,
The Ukrainians condemned India when we blew our nuclear test in 1998. The Ukrainians voted against India in the United Nations Security Council. The Ukrainians sold Pakistan T-80 tanks $850 million. The Ukrainians voted yes for the United Nations interference in Kashmir. So with what face is Mr. Igor Polika, the ambassador of Ukraine, now crying in a press conference, "Arey Modi ji, please come and help us"? What is this? I mean, you want to only take...
Absolutely, Major General. In fact, as you pointed out, right, not taking a stand right now, or perhaps having that non-aligned status is in the best interest of India at the moment. I'd like to have this discussion further with you, but I'm afraid due to lack of time, we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much for sparing your time and speaking to Mirror Now.